Hi, it's your favourite Atomic Blonde here with my nerdy weekly roundup. Yes, we are here. We finally got here. Celebrate good times. Come on. Anyway, finally, the last She-Hulk. And I'm kind of speechless in a way that you basically got a show about nothing. And because you got a show about nothing, there was no way to end a show about nothing. So they just wrote more nonsense. Basically, it's so bad, so painful, so rude, offensive to all Marvel fans out there. Unless, of course, you're the 30, 40 something alcoholic narcissist writers that this is all based on in LA, all giving themselves high fives. Every week we're just like, this can't get any worse. It has to be one of the worst season finales ever. I mean, we knew they were never going to land it because there was nothing to land. Jesus Christ, talk about set it on fire. They just burnt down Marvel Studios with this season finale. And they're basically admitting it as well. That the whole point of this season finale was to point out that Marvel fans are all incel misogynistic shits, which we've already got the whole thing, because all they've done is put down men every opportunity they get. That that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is shit. It's all formulaic and all done with algorithms, and the whole Marvel universe is pointless. That was basically the upshot of this finale. I don't know what they're thinking, quite honestly. So I'll try and cover this nonsense. We start. Hold that thought. Yeah. Mm. I've got a very tail end of my cold still, so I'm a little bit. So apologies. We start. I'm not sure I can get through this. With Jen in prison in the Abomination cell. I guess because they didn't have enough money for any more sets. I don't know. So anyway, she's in there. She's Jen again. You've got Paralegal doesn't do any work. Cuck lawyer. His personality changes every episode that he's in. But he's been AWOL for about the last 3 or 4 episodes. But he's turned up again. And the black lawyer, who doesn't like Jen but sort of likes Jen. We can't really keep track. But she's there to be, token lawyer. Jen's on one going, right, we've got to hunt down the people who set me up and put all that stuff on the screen. And they were like, Jen, cool your jets, love. You're in trouble. You're in prison. We need to focus on getting you out. That's kind of fair point. They basically, then someone comes in, offers her a plea deal. We don't even hear what the plea deal is because Jen just goes, I'll take it. And leaves and gets out of prison. And she basically gets like an Asbo ankle bracelet in the thing. So we can kind of guess from that, because we're actually not morons, despite what the writers think we are. We can get from that obviously she's not allowed to be the Hulk anymore. Which is what Jen's wanted the whole fricking from the get-go anyway. But of course, Jen being Jen, she's now complaining about that fact. So the fact that Jen's been in prison for like, I don't know, 1 day or something since the gala, we don't know, because they don't bother with timing in this show. There's a little bit of montage. We get obviously the upshot that she's been fired. And then there's her going through her empty apartment because she's having to move back in with her parents. God knows how much time it's meant to be like days, weeks, tops that she's like been inside, and she's already fallen behind on her rental payments or something. Or I don't know, but she has hundreds of thousands of dollars as like head of department in a law firm. And somehow she can't keep up her pay. We know Jen has no life. She doesn't go anywhere. All she does is drink and shag men. who knows what she's been up to. But anyway, so she's lost her apartment. She's moved back in with her parents. She then continues to be completely ungrateful and is vile to her parents constantly. Paralegal, who does no work, comes over. They've got a big, string board trying to figure out who's behind it all, who's King Hulk or Hulk King. And they're just like really, really annoying. Jen's mum comes in, shows Paralegal, who does no work, a video of Jen twerking when she was at college. She asks for that. She sends it to her. Jen basically tells her mum to piss off because she can't think with her in the room because she's so ungrateful. We see Jen strop off to her bedroom and just sulk because it's so unfair because Jen acts like she's 17 years old and she has been from the get-go, feeling sorry for herself, even though this is all her fault because this is all her own actions. Hey, why take the blame when you can blame other people, hey? So anyway, she then decides to text Emil. She doesn't get a reply. Then she's like, well, I'm welcome anytime, aren't I? So she goes off to the lodge commune thing. Meanwhile, Paralegal, who does no work, uploads the video of Jen twerking onto Intelligentsia. And amazingly, she gets contacted straight away by Hulk King because obviously he's just sitting there watching every upload. What the hell? And invites her to a meetup. Where have we heard that term in Sills? Yeah, so she gets invited to a meetup. She contacts his cuck lawyer and is fed to his pug. I don't think it's the first time we've actually known his name. I hadn't known his name up until this point because he's just a man. Why does he need one? But anyway, he's called Pug, so he's named after a dog. Take from that what you will. So again, his personality's changed yet again this week. And she's going to basically send him into this meetup. And all of a sudden becomes this complete wet lettuce and I don't know how to talk like a man, like a misogynist man. I'm an ally. I can't use the word female because that's insulting and not inclusive enough. And she's, oh, you have to use the word female, even though they used the word female earlier on in the show. I've given up waiting for this show to make any sense whatsoever. So it basically turns out that this meetup is at the lodge where Jen's at, waiting for Emil. Emil's not there because he's gone to speak at this lodge. There's lots of just shitting on the fans. There's all like, obviously they're all men going, oh, She-Hulk sucks. We don't need female superheroes. And what's that about Lady Thor? That's all rubbish. We just want men. Raw. And then Tech Boy comes in, who's the one that Jen went on a date with and keeps turning up for no reason other than for us to know that he's obviously behind it all because it's a website and he's a tech dude. Wasn't rocket science, was it? Let's face it. So yeah, oh, lo and behold, he's Hulk King. Didn't see it coming. But anyway, makes a comment about Cup Lawyer Boy saying, ooh, he's hot. So, I mean, he's looked gay all the way through anyway, Tech Boy. But I don't know what, basically sort of saying that male fans of MCU are all closet homosexuals, maybe? Who knows? Given that they've never, the writers of this show clearly say haven't spoken or dated a man in about 20 years, who knows what's going on in their heads? So anyway, Jen can't find Emil. She basically takes herself off to go find him, ends up at this meetup, by which point Cuck Lawyer's earpiece has stopped working, so Paralegal does no work's gone rushing in there. They both realise that Tech Boy is the guy behind it. This all culminates. You got Emil on stage who's like the abomination, just doing some speaking. He doesn't realise what this sort of club is, but he just, he's doing life coaching and helping them change their lives, but he doesn't really realise what the circumstances. So Jen bursts in. They were like, oh, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? All goes a bit shit. So this is where it goes like really off the rails. Totally off the rails. So the only two storylines, and I use that word lightly for this show, or threads, is that one is Jen's just spent the whole series trying to get laid or getting banged, basically. Storyline one. And storyline two was about as we now know, tech dude trying to get her blood. That's pretty much been it. There's nothing else to glean from this show other than Jen going shopping, Jen waiting for Tex, Jen waiting to go to a wedding. So this is trying to culminate into some sort of finale storyline, which is tech dude's going to inject himself with Jen's blood so he can be a Hulk because only men are deserving of this, which he does, which then goes against the whole thing that happened in episode 1, where Bruce basically says it's to do with his and hers DNA that reacts, and that's why they become Hulks, and not just anybody can become a Hulk if they're exposed to the blood or gamma rays, because it kill most people, because it's a really, really rare thing, because obviously there would be Hulks. I don't even know why. Why am I even trying to make sense of this nonsense? So anyway, he hulks up. Then Jen goes, oh, hey, this isn't fair. Everything's going to crap and it's my show. I want this. I'm like a petulant child. So then we cut to like the Disney Marvel screen on Disney Plus. Jen sort of comes out of the Hulk window, smashes into a different MCU window, like a behind the scenes one. She swings down, goes through that. Then she's in our world at Marvel Studios, tracks down the writer's room, goes in, and like some of the actual writers are there, including Jessica Crapface, writer, head showrunner, basically has a go at them and says, this is all crap, which we're all like, well, yeah, we know that. We've been watching it for the last 9 weeks, whatever it was. I want a better ending. This is stupid. And we're like, yeah. I think it's the only time like the audience has been, complete agreement with Jen. It's like, yeah, we agree. This is all stupid. This makes no sense. She demands to see Kevin. They all laugh. You can't see Kevin. No one gets to see Kevin. She's like, oh, I'm She-Hulk. So off she trots. Then gets to like a reception area. Says she wants to see Kevin. She has to go on an iPad and scroll through, sign an NDA. As soon as she signs the NDA, a load of security people turn up, and she was like, oh, what was the point of that? And he's just like, well, everybody has to sign an NDA. Oh, after my ribs, hold them in. Then obviously she beats up all the security guards and quite frankly nearly kills them because Jen just is completely irresponsible. Finally gets through a door. There's all these big screens of all Marvel stuff playing, when stuff used to be good. And she's, oh, what is this? And then this robot comes down from the ceiling, and it's K.E.V. I can't, spells Kevin, stands for something nonsensical. And basically Kevin Feige's a robot, and all Marvel is designed by this robot because of algorithms. Oh, it's so funny. She's basically then kicking off saying, it's my show, this isn't fair, I want a happy ending, blah blah. And the robots know, well, you can't, because we have these formulas. And then there's this whole another opportunity for Jen basically to shit all over the MCU, basically say that the films are all crap and the storylines are all rubbish, and like, where is this going? And she says, well, I want a happy ending. I want to be with, I want to bang Matt Murdock again, not even have a relationship with him. I want to bang Matt Murdock again. It's my show. I should have a happy ending. I don't want Bruce coming in and like a man coming in and saving the day. And I don't, and it's not the powers that are evil, and it's the person. So giving the bad guy the blood, it's all just it's just bollocks, basically. So anyway, this nonsensical conversation happens. The computer agrees to it, sends her back, and she's just basically had to rewrite the whole universe. That now Tech Boy's getting arrested. Matt Murdock turns up from nowhere and basically gets stuck with her having to go to a family barbecue. Again, no consent. Well done, Jen. And then all of a sudden she's with her family and they're all happy and talking, even though she can't stand her family. She slagged off her family for the whole of the series, and it was even degrading her family when they've given her somewhere to live in this episode. But all of a sudden they're all amazing. Bruce turns up in his Hulk form. And then he's like, oh, hi, Bruce. And then he introduces him to his son, Scar. And everybody's like, oh, Bruce has a son. And that's kind of it. It was just, I don't know. All it seemed to be was a vehicle that Jen didn't have to take any responsibility for the things that she's done, and everybody else did. So, Emil goes back to prison for 10 years, and Wong breaks him out in the mid-scene end credity thing. So he's obviously going to pop up in some other Marvel show or film or something, but who cares, because we're not going to be watching it. Yeah, and Jen basically got her own way. Jen's always right. She doesn't have to, like, every decision that she made led her to where she was, but that wasn't fair. She wants, she wants to bang this guy. She wants her job back. She wants her apartment back, and they let it happen. No accountability whatsoever for the narcissist. Who'd have funked it? And then one of the worst things about this, and I forgot to say, is right at the start, when they do the intro, they basically do a parody of the 70s show, The Incredible Hulk. And they've obviously put her in instead of Bill Bixby as the Hulk. And you've got the narrator going over and basically just taking, ripping the piss out of it. So they're ripping the piss out of the Hulk's heritage, ripping the piss out of the comics, ripping the piss out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, ripping the piss out of the fans, and basically just calling everybody incels and misogynists and, same old, same old. It's just, I don't know. I like I say, I'm a bit of a loss what to say. I'm just glad the fucking thing's over. So what have we learned? Jen's a narcissist slag who goes around banging anything with a pulse and takes no responsibility for her actions. Good role model. Marvel, well done. All we can hope is that this is the nail in the coffin for all the absolute nonsense crap coming out of that studio. If they don't learn anything from this show, well, let it burn. Just let it burn. I'm rest relieved I do not have to watch another second of this total garbage. Poor Matt Murdock, that's all I say. And Charlie Cox, I dread to think what his show is going to be like based on this. It doesn't bode well, and certainly she'd better not be in there. Oh yeah, the other rib tickling jokes were basically when she gets to see Kevin, she's in her She-Hulk form. He tells her to turn back into Jen because she's expensive and the CGI costs too much, and can she do that off camera because the CGI team has moved on to another project. I could barely hold in my laughter. So, like I say, they just ripped the shit out of their own show by saying, yep, we know it's crap. Yep, she's too crap to be in the MCU, because they basically said, no, she's not going to appear in any films. And everything's just pointless because it all ends the same, unless you're a narcissistic woman and you just get to write your own ending. Well, from one dumpster fire to Andor, this will take about 30 seconds to review. Bit of arguing, do the heist, no tension, get what they came for, leave. The guy that was giving Andor all the hard time about not being trustworthy turns out not to be trustworthy, was going to steal the money from them because that was from the heist. It was a payroll thing. Basically says to Andor, let's split the money and go and just leave him or kill him or something, I don't know. And Andor basically is like, so you're not for the rebellion? He's like, hell no, I'm in it for the money, which is basically what Andor said. But Andor then basically shoots and kills him. Then he goes to see the others because one of them, the young boy, got shot, and some doctor was trying to save him. I think he died. I'm not sure. I wasn't paying attention. And she's like, oh, what does all this mean? And, oh, you're a bad guy. You killed such and such. And he's like, oh, it's not what it looked like. He was going to basically steal the money with me and leave you stranded. End of episode. I shit you not. So I'm out. If you want to know how Andor ends, you can watch the next 10 episodes yourself, because these are 40-minute episodes, and that was all I could kind of glean from it. It's like, yeah, it's a lovely looking show. It's a great looking show, and it's completely wasted on I mean, I guess the writing's not nonsensical. The writing makes sense. At least there is a plot and it sort of follows through. But Jesus, nothing happens. The pacing of this show is so bad. It took 5 episodes to get to the heist. And then nothing really happens in the heist. Lots of sort of running around corridors and taking people hostage, and then a little bit of a shootout, and then they're off. That was it. 0 tension. Oh, and you get Stellan at the end. In Coruscant, they all hear about this raid and getting at the heart of the rebellion, taking a stab at the Empire, and Stellan's in his shop and wanders out the back and starts laughing really loudly, which does make it really obvious that he's kind of not a fan of the Empire when he's got people in his shop. I don't know, who cares? But yes, I'm out on Andor. When it completes, I might go through and skip it and see what happens, but geez Louise, I literally can't. I will end up in a coma. I've already lost several brain cells trying to watch She-Hulk. I can't do it to myself. Sorry, guys. Anyway, so let's talk about something good. Tell me something good. House of the Flipping Dragon. This episode. If this doesn't hit you in the feels, you have a heart of stone. Poor old Viserys. This poor man. This poor man. This is really his swan song, his episode. The acting is just out the park. I mean, Paddy Considine has done an amazing job with this character. Apparently, he received a tweet or a DM or whatever from George R.R. Martin just saying that your Viserys is better than mine. So basically, he elevated the character off the page and created something that George didn't even write down. And I've sort of heard that from other people who have read the book. That he's just done an amazing job, and absolutely amazing acting and heartbreaking. What an episode. It's just chef's kiss. House of the Dragon. I love this show so much. So this episode kicks off 6 years after the previous episode. We find out that Lord Valerian was obviously gone to the war in the Stepstones. He was on his boat fighting. He had his neck slashed and he fell into the water. He was saved, but he's now incredibly ill. He's got a fever, because you imagine, I guess, the infection, etc. He's 3 days from being brought home. And it's not looking good, basically. And the princess is like, is he going to die? And his brother's there, Valand, and basically is sort of saying, look, he's probably not going to make it. We need to talk about succession of his title. Basically, he wants the title. He wants to rule. He doesn't want it going to Rhaenyra's children, Eleanor's kids, because he's basically, like we say, everybody knows they're not Eleanor's kids, and he thinks it should go to Valerian blood. The princess is very much, that's not what my husband's wishes were. She's going to sort of honor the wishes, and he's like, well, I'm going to petition, because now it's kind of in our favor. Because we obviously find out that Viserys is on his last legs. He's incredibly ill. And you've basically got Otto and Alicent making decisions or relaying the king's decisions. But obviously he's just out of it. So he's like, this is the optimum time. We can go in. I can basically declare them as illegitimate children, and I can get the crown back. So then we go to Daemon and Rhaenyra. They seem very happy. We see her eldest son, Jace, is taking lessons in High Valyrian, and he's trying to learn certain speeches and understand the language. And she comes down, and he's getting a few things wrong, but she's like very supportive, like coming across as a very loving, caring mother. And he's like, well, I'm going to be king one day. I've got to learn this. And she's like, well, unless you're preparing, planning on robbing the throne from me, you've got time. Don't worry about it. But you can tell he's taking his duties very seriously. He's learning the traditions, and he's like making a point that it's really important that I learn the traditions, and be a good ruler, which is the complete opposite to what we've seen with Aegon and Alicent's eldest, and that's reaffirmed in this episode, which I'll come on to. Daemon was out basically looking for dragon eggs. While he's out, he's given a message. He returns back to Rhaenyra. They successfully get 3 eggs, and we see that Rhaenyra's expecting. She's basically had 2 children with Daemon. This is their 3rd, and he's got, say, the dragon egg for the expected baby. And basically, this note is to say that Valand is going to be petitioning for the Lord Driftmark position title, and basically calling the kids' parentage into question, which we all know is treasonous, is what we've seen from previous episodes. At King, and they basically, there's a conversation between Rhaenyra and Daemon, and she's like, well, we've got to go. You've got Otto and Alicent sitting on the throne. We've got to go. We've got to try and speak to my father, because he's the only one that can protect them, basically. So they make a decision to take the whole family to King's Landing, and then we switch to King's Landing. There's Alicent is sitting there with the advisors, and they're going for their usual, political meeting and what's going on in the realm and making decisions, etc. And it comes up about the petition, and she's not really comfortable with this, but she kind of started the ball rolling. This is kind of what her and her father are actually sort of hoping for. As they leave the chamber, one of the knights comes over to the Queen, and she's sort of, I haven't got time to talk to you right now. And he's like, this is important. There's been an incident kind of with Aegon in his chambers. And it's a delicate situation. Rhaenyra and Daemon arrive, and they basically sort of look around. They see things have changed. All the Targaryen statues and things have been removed, and kind of religious symbols have been put in, which they're not happy about. And they go see the king, and this is the first time we see Viserys, and he's in a bed, and he's just a skeleton, he's a tiny little skeleton, and his head's bandaged across his eye, because we basically find out later on he's lost his eye and half his cheek's missing. Obviously, he lost his arm in the last episode, but he's so painfully thin, and he's in so much pain. It's absolutely heartbreaking. So Daemon and her sort of go up to the king in bed, and she's like, "Oh, father, it's me." And he's like so pleased. And she's like, "Daemon's here," and he's like, "Daemon," and he's like really pleased to see them. And also he's a little bit confused, but they sort of come in, and the look on Daemon's face is just the acting again from Matt Smith. He doesn't say anything, but it's just all in his expression, because he's heartbreaking for his brother to see him so weak and so withered and in pain. It's just, but Daemon's like, right, we've come here for a reason, and he starts telling Viserys about the war in the Stepstones, and the king's like, well, you won that 4 years ago, and he sort of says, no, he has to remind him that there's a new war and what's happened to Lord Valerian, and there's a petition, and the king's like getting like confused, and he's like distressed. So Rhaenyra kind of distracts him by saying, "Oh, I've got some people to introduce you to," and basically she shows him a young baby kind of thing, and says like, "This is Aegon," so another Aegon, and he's like smiles, and then she picks up another child, and she goes, "And this is Viserys," and his little face is just like, just beaming, and he's like, "Oh, that's a good name for a king," and then obviously he gets quite distressed, and he's in a lot of pain. So he asks for his tea, which she passes him, and he takes a sip. And then Daemon basically examines this tea and sort of smells it. And he's not happy with what's in this tea. We then go to Alicent. And she's in a room with this young girl, very young girl, who's absolutely sobbing. She's like heartbroken. And it basically transpires that she's kind of the servant for Aegon and his wife, and she looks after the children and takes care of their needs. And she'd taken him some wine, put it down, and he basically assaults her, rapes her, and she's absolutely distraught. Alicent initially comforts the girl, sort of cuddles her, says it's not your fault, it's okay, I believe you. But then Alicent, being Alicent, who over the has become quite manipulative, then sort of says, yeah, but others may not, people really going to believe the word of a maid over a prince, and you were alone with him after all. And the poor girl's like, well, I was told to take him. And the queen's like, well, if you get a reputation of one of those sort of girls, and the girl was just like beside herself, and she's like, she promises that she won't say anything. And the queen's like, well, you've already told such the knight and your mother's told me, and all this kind of thing. And she sort of swears on her life that she won't tell anybody. And the queen's like, well, that's not really good enough. And she hands her a pouch of coins, big bunch, and basically sort of says she's got to be banished from the kingdom. And then another servant comes in and hands her moon tea, which we learned obviously in the previous episodes that was given to Rhaenyra after she slept with to Kristen Cole. And she's like, well, we just need to make sure, that there's no mistakes, no ramifications of this, or no proof, basically. If obviously the girl got pregnant, there'd be proof. So she gives her this tea, and this poor girl is just sort of standing there with money in one hand and tea in the other, like, because she looks about 14, 15 years old, and basically drinks the tea. And that's it, so she's drunk the tea, and she's going to be, packed off on her merry way. We see Alicent then goes to Aegon's chambers, and Aegon's just naked, passed out on his bed, couldn't give a flying. Alicent shouts at him, and he's like, oh, what? And she's like, she's like, Diana, they call her, Diana, they call her. And he's like, who? What are you on about? And she's like livid, going, the girl you bloody assaulted, kind of thing. And he's like, oh, her, what? What? Why are you getting bent out of shape? He goes, it's just a bit of fun. And like, she's obviously apoplectic with him, and he, and as usual, she's basically saying, you're just bringing shame to the family, to me. You can't keep carrying on like this. And he goes, as usual, she sort of slaps him for the 1,000th time. Pretty much every episode we've seen, something happens and she just slaps Aegon. And he's like a bit like dejected, going, look, I never asked for all of this. I don't want all of this. And pretty much the theme with Aegon all the way through is that he doesn't want to be king. You can clearly see his brother does, but he doesn't want any of it. And he's just acting out. And the more pressure that's put on him to be king, the more he seems to act out and act, unprincely at the end of the day. And he's almost like pushing his boundaries to see like how far can he go before, maybe he doesn't have to be king. Then Alicent goes to see Rhaenyra and Daemon. There's a kind of backhanded exchange back and forth about the sort of state of her father. And like Daemon sort of comments that, he's obviously been given opium for the pain, but he's being given something else that obviously just muddles his mind. Like, so he's just out of it. So he can't comment, but it's because he makes a comment that you're obviously very busy because you didn't greet us, which obviously for protocol, where she's the princess, the queen should come and meet her. And she's like, oh, and Rhaenyra's like, oh, I'm sure it's fine, she's very busy ruling. And Alicent's like, well, full well that my father and I aren't ruling, we're just carrying out the word of the king. And Daemon's like, well, how's he doing that then? Like wheezing and blinking. And she's like sort of rolling her eyes, and so he makes a comment about the teas being given, and how they he's basically saying you're deliberately keeping him out of it so you can make the decisions, which doesn't go down too well. And then Rhaenyra says, well, what's happening about the petition then? Who's going to rule on that? To which Alicent's like, well, that would be me. or smug cowness. And then we kind of go to seeing like Luke and Jace sort of walking around. They go down to the training area where they used to go as boys, and they're kind of laughing and joking and go, oh, it hasn't changed a bit, this is great. And Luke's very conscious that everybody's kind of staring at them, and there's kind of whispers, and he's like, you know, well, if I didn't look like this and I look more like Laenor, this wouldn't be a problem, but I've got more strong features. And Jace is just like, who cares what they think? You know, bugger them, basically. And then there's a sort of training and a fight going on. The boys go over to see it. And it's basically Aemond and Kristen Cole sparring together. And Aemond wins that sparring match and clocks his nephews. And it's all a bit awkward. He's, oh, if you come to train kind of thing. And they just kind of like, let's get out of here. Then Rhaenyra goes to see the princess, Rhaenys, with her granddaughter, to sort of, you know, she pretty much puts it on the line saying, you know, would you basically back me up in the petition? You know, I know there's sort of no love lost, and you believe that I had your son killed. I swear to you, you know, on oath that I didn't have him killed and I had no part of it. And you can see her face is like, she doesn't believe a word of it. And she sort of, you know, sort of says, you know, if you back me, then we can betroth our children, like your granddaughters to my sons, and we can, you know, and she sort of has a very generous or desperate offer, to which Rhaenyra says, well, does it matter where it's coming from? And she's very much like, well, tomorrow the High Towers will land their first blow, and to be fair, I will stand alone. I'm sort of staying out of this kind of thing. You know, I'm kind of doing what's best for me. I think at this point, she doesn't even want to admit that her husband may die. She's still hoping that he's going to pull through. You know, and she just kind of, I think, you know, doesn't really want to bar of this. She loves her granddaughters, which we've seen previously. She sort of adores them, but she's very much like saying, you know, you're on your own, love. You made your bed, you lie in it. So we then go to the evening, and Rhaenyra goes to see Viserys, and he's obviously in bed, and she's talking to him. She doesn't really know whether what she's saying is registering anywhere. And she talks to him about the Song of Ice and Fire, and does he still believe it to be true? Excuse me. And that's obviously what he told her about, and why he made her next in line, and Aegon's vision and all of that. And you know, she's sort of saying it's a heavy burden holding the realm together. And if you truly believe in all of this, I need your help. I need you to defend me and defend my sons. You know, that basically they're coming after us and try and take it all away. And like I say, she's basically crying, and she doesn't really know, say, whether he can understand anything that she's saying. We go to the next morning, and we see poor old Viserys. He's sort of receiving treatments from the maesters, and you sort of just see he's covered in sores, and he's just in so much pain. And Otto comes over and says, and he's like, you know, and the king goes, I want supper. And Otto's like really patronizing, going, it's morning, your liege. And he's like, I know it's the morning, because I want supper with my family this evening. It's just like, don't freaking talk to me like I'm an idiot. And he's like, you know, I want my family together. I want us to have supper. I want you to go in the Red Lodge. I want you to go arrange it. And he's kind of like sort of sat up, and you just hear all these awful noises of him, because he's in so much pain as they're sort of having to move him around. And he's sitting up, and Otto goes to give him his tea. And the king's like, no, I don't want it. And Otto's a bit like, a bit taken aback by this. And he's like, no, I'll be fine. I need to be, you know, with it. Then we go to the throne room, and Otto's sitting on the Iron Throne, basically sort of saying that he'll be, speaking on the behalf of the king today. And we have a petition, and basically sort of says to Valand, you want to petition to become the Lord of Driftmark. What's your case? And he sort of goes into it, and he's basically making all the basically saying without saying that he's the closest, that he's true Valerian blood. He's the closest thing to a Valerian king. It's Valerian blood that goes through his veins, and basically that these kids just don't deserve it. Rhaenyra kind of tries to sort of says, well, hang on, blah, 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 blah. And Alicent shuts her down and says, you'll get your chance to make your case, but let Valand finish his point. And he basically just goes on to just say how they're not deserving because they're not, without, basically, I'm Valerian, I deserve this, they don't. Then Rhaenyra goes to make her case, and she starts by saying, like 20 years ago, I stood here, and then the hall doors open, and you see this little hunched over with a cane Viserys coming in. He's got like a half mask covering his damaged side of his face, his crown on, and he gets announced, Lord King Valerian Targaryen, and he's like this poor little sort of slow walk, like Yoda, up to the throne, and he kind of gets to the steps of the throne, and a knight goes to help him, and he's get up, no, I'm fine, I can do it. And as he goes upstairs, the crown falls off his head, and then you basically see someone come up, and he goes to dismiss, goes like I can do it, and then he realizes it's Daemon, and Daemon picks up the crown and helps him onto the throne and just puts the crown back on his head. It's like, it's amazing. And you're just sitting there going, this is all just too much. And then so then basically the king says, I'm a bit confused. Like, why are we even discussing this? This has been decided. Rules of, it will pass down to Luke and blah, blah, blah. So the best person really who would know Lord Valerian's wishes is the Princess Rhaenys. And obviously up to this point, she said to Rhaenyra, like, you're on your own. But when the king comes in, there's a point where the camera kind of flips to her, and you just see this look on her face where obviously he's her cousin, and you just know she's like, I can't break his heart, I can't do it. So she basically turns around and says that her husband's wishes have never changed. He's always said that he wants it to go to his son. It would have been his son, and then therefore his son's heirs, and that's not changed. So it should go to Luke. And the look on Alicent and Otto's face is like they're pissed. They are not happy about this. This is like completely scuppered their plans. And she basically sort of says that this should happen, and also I have good news that we've agreed that Rhaenyra's sons will marry my granddaughters. They're betrothed, and this will strengthen the alliance. So Viserys is absolutely made up at this announcement. He's like, this is fantastic, right? Job done, problem solved. We're not gonna hear any more on this. But then Valand can't shut up. Basically, he's absolutely livid, and he keeps going, and he starts talking about blood again, and talking about how they're not deserving of it. And basically, if he, cut himself and saw Valerian blood, you wouldn't even know what that was. And he says, I demand to have this title. I demand to be, to have it, and not these. And he holds himself back. And Damon's going, go on, like, say it. It's like, almost like, I dare you to say it. And he just screams out, bastards! And then basically calls Rhaenyra a whore, which on lots of levels is not a good idea. So the king, despite his frownness, is like fuming, and he gets up and he draws his knife and says, I'll have your tongue for this. and he goes to say something, that Valen goes to say something, but before anything can happen, a sword just cuts through and basically chops his head off, or kind of drops it through his mouth there, sort of goes, and the top part of his head comes off. And you just got Damon standing there with his big sword, and he's like, "You can keep your tongue, your head instead," because he's basically just called his wife a whore, and he's committed treason, saying that the kids are bastards. So it's all okay. But it was just like, oh my god. Then we kind of go to the supper, and everybody's sitting around, and it's really awkward. And the king arrives, or the king's brought down, and he's all very much looking around, and he's like, oh, it fills my heart to have all my family around me. I love you all so much. But it also breaks his heart that they've all grown apart so much, and there's just so much difference, in the family and the infighting. And he basically takes his mask off, and this is the first time we actually see him. And like you say, his whole eye socket is gone. Most of his cheek has now got a great hole in it. And he's so skinny, and his teeth are rotting, and his nails are, he's just he's a walking skeleton basically. And he says to them all that I'm the king, but I want you to see me as me, and hence why he's taking his mask off. That I'm standing here as a father, as a husband, as a brother, as a grandsire. And all I love you all so much, and all I want basically is for you lot to bloody get on. Just stop fighting and get on. That's he's like, I'm not long for this world, kind of thing. And that's almost like his dying wish. Can you just please make up? To which Rhaenyra stands up and raises a toast to the queen, and everybody's like, what? And basically acknowledges that how the queen clearly loves her father and has been loyal to him all these years, and that's not in any doubt whatsoever, that she's taken care of him tirelessly without any kind of she's tended to him, and she's loved and she's honored him, and she gives her gratitude and her apologies. And the queen's like really taken aback by this. She's like, thank you. She's like, I sort of accept your apology. So then the queen raises a toast to Rhaenyra, as they're both mothers, and how basically they both love their children, and they probably find, and actually if they're honest with each other, they've got more in common than they'd like to admit. And raises a cup to her house, and how she'll make Rhaenyra make a fine queen. So this like absolutely warms Daenerys' heart, and the supper starts and the food starts coming out. And then you've got Aegon, who keeps goading Jace and making comments, basically implying that Jace is a virgin and he's never been with a girl, and now he's betrothed, he'll finally get to lay with a woman. And then he goes over to his betrothed and says, yeah, well, if he can't satisfy you, come and see me, kind of thing. And Jace is just like stands up and slams his hands down on the table, and he's like fuming. But again, this is where we sort of see the difference in characters, like his strength of character, and he kind of just puts it to one side and says he wants to raise a toast to the princes and how they have fond memories of being in King's Landing with them, and they all got on as children, and sort of health and happiness to them, and their shared youth and things like that. And the king's all like, oh, here, and he's really happy. And then you kind of see a bit where everybody's looking very pensive and sort of cracking on with the meal. And then you sort of see the king looking around the table. And when the king's looking around the table, you see people all laughing and joking and getting on and blissfully happy. And then when it kind of cuts away, it's all still a little bit fraught, but so the king is kind of, I think, seeing what he wants to see. He's kind of seeing everything's going to be fine. Look, they're all happy, they're all getting on. And what the king sees and what we're seeing are two slightly different things. And then basically the king's just like, that's it, and he's in loads of pain. So he basically is going to retire, and the knights take him away. And before this, the king had asked for some music, and Jace is dancing with Aegon's sister / wife because he treats her like crap, and and he's been goading him, so he dances with his wife, and pretty much then as the supper's going on, the servants bring out a suckling pig and put it down on table in front of Aemond, and Luke starts sniggering and laughing, and obviously there's going back to when he didn't have a dragon when he was a kid, and they got him a pig, and Aemond does not respond well to this, so he gets up and goes, right, I'll raise a toast to my nephews, and basically makes a comment, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to raise a nephew to the health of my nephews who are handsome, wise, and there's like a pause, and then he says strong, and the queen's like, oh, for God's sake, and then he's yeah, to the 3 strong boys, and of course Jace then just punches him, and all the fight starts, and the knights come in and pull him apart, and then basically Daemon steps in, and Alicent's like, why the bloody hell did you say that? We finally just had some sort of truce, and you freaking had to say that. So the boys all get dismissed to their quarters, and Alicent and Rhaenyra have a sort of moment. She's like, oh, I'm sorry you said that, and Rhaenyra's like, oh, well, I think we should go. We should go back to our kingdom, and she's like, oh, but, and then Alicent's like, well, you've only just got here, so she says, well, let me take the children back, and then I'll come on back of dragon, and I'll be back, and then we can sort of look after her father together, kind of thing, which they agreed to. And she's like, and Alicent's like, the king and I would really like that. So they're trying to obviously bury the hatchet. The kids are having none of it. But that's kind of, well, certainly Alicent's kids, which really is her fault. She's brought them up to resent and hate her cousins because they are illegitimate. So she's kind of going back on it a bit. She's kind of having to, I think she's gonna have to reap what she's sown. So anyway, poor old Viserys is in bed, and he's lying there, and Alicent comes in and gives him some tea. But the king thinks he's talking to Rhaenyra, or he's completing the conversation that Rhaenyra started with him the night before, saying do you believe in the Song of Ice and Fire? Do you believe that this is our future, kind of thing? And as the king thinks he's talking to Rhaenyra, he's referring to Aegon, meaning her son, his grandson, not his own son. And really and he's saying to her, I got it wrong. And talking about Aegon, and then sort of saying, but you need to rule. You're strong enough. You can bring the realm together. You can fix things. But Alicent sort of is taking this the wrong way, that she thinks he's asking her to get her son Aegon on the throne, and it was a mistake to name Rhaenyra, which is not what he's saying. He's saying to Rhaenyra that he was right, that he was wrong about the sort of the Aegon part, but he was right that she's strong enough, and she should rule. She will bring the kingdom together. But say Alicent has taken this completely the wrong way. So this is really obviously stirring up for her to basically go through with what their original plan was. And she's like, yeah, she sort of promises the king, yeah, I'll honor your wishes, kind of thing, not realizing that wasn't meant for her. And then we just basically, so she leaves, and you just see Viserys dying moments, and just a tear runs down his cheek, and then the poor guy is gone. So he thinks he's fixed everything. He thinks he's brought the family together. He's told Rhaenyra what his wishes are, what she needs to do, and he can die peacefully. But he's actually just kicked a hornet's nest, telling the wrong person the message. Oof! What an episode! Oh, emotional roller coaster. the acting was just so good in this episode. And say if Paddy does not win some awards next year, there's something very wrong in this world. Yeah, I mean, not a big fan of Emmys or anything like that, but he really deserves some recognition. It's just, oh, talk about tear at your heartstrings. And who thought you'd get that from House of the Dragon? It's like, absolutely fantastic. So we've got 2 episodes to go. Next one on Monday here in the UK. Oh, it's just building now to complete. Rhaenyra should be ascending to the throne now. Viserys is dead, but you've got this from Alicent thinking that she needs to put Aegon on the throne. So yeah, it's going to be a tumultuous 2 episodes and hopefully an amazing finale. It was announced this week that it looks like we're going to get 4 seasons of House of the Dragon. So a lot can happen in 4 seasons of 10 episodes. So a lot can happen as we've seen in Game of Thrones. Nothing's a dead cert, and where you think it's going, it might not be going. So bring on the next 2 episodes. I'll be gutted when it finishes, but I'm enjoying this show so much. As I say every week, if you're still on the fence, do go check it out. It's absolutely worth it. I love the show to bits. I'll be gutted when it finishes, especially with all the crap we seem to be getting at the moment with upcoming shows. Hey ho, let me have a little slip. Talking of upcoming shows, that little segue there. So I saw a couple of trailers for things coming out in the next week or 2. Next Friday, Amazon are launching a new original series called The Peripheral, which is based on the William Gibson book. You might know William Gibson from his Neuromancer books. That's probably what he's most famous for. He's a big sort of sci-fi author. It's kind of sort of set sort of nowish, I guess, and it's kind of hard to say. So this girl, she's very, very bright, she's intelligent, but she's kind of in a sort of little town in a bit of a dead-end job because she's having to look after her mother who's ill, and her kind of escape is sort of virtual reality. And she basically gets introduced into this sort of new headset, and she tries it out, and basically this sort of then takes you into sort of near future, and it's in London, and this sort of new virtual reality, I think it's sort of 70 years in the future, I think. And the basic kind of what transpires is that it's not virtual reality. Actually, they are being transported to this part in the future. So it's a really amazing concept. I have actually just downloaded the book. I don't know if I won't have time to read it by the time the show comes out, I don't think. But I would really just read the source material to see how Amazon treats it. It's always a gamble, as we've seen with Amazon now. For every Reacher, you get Wheel of Time, and for every Terminal SG, you get Rings of Power. So who knows? It could go either way, this show. But I'm definitely, the premise and the concept sounds great. From the trailer, it looks really intriguing. The effects look quite good. So that starts the 21st of October on Amazon. And I will be checking that out. So next week's review, well, I can let you know on the first episode of that one. The other thing I've seen a trailer for, but I don't really know a lot about, I pretty much just saw it this afternoon, so I've not had a chance to look into it, but it's the Cabinet of Curiosities, which I think was an old black and white film back in 60s or something. But this is a Del Toro version of Cabinet of Curiosities. This is out on the 25th of October on Netflix. So obviously, coming up to the end of October, there's lots of sort of supernatural, Halloween-y type shows coming up. It's an anthology of stories. Again, some of Del Toro's stuff can be a bit hit and miss in terms of quality. They're generally always quite gory. I watched the one, I can't think what it's called now, but when they're in the jungle and it's cannibals. Is it green something? Oh, wolf, blimey. Just people being torn limb from limb and eaten as you'd expect from cannibals, but that did not pull any punches, let me tell you. But hopefully, I mean, it's Netflix, so I'm guessing it's going to be dialed down to an 11. But yeah, sort of anthology of horror stories, Cabinet of Curiosity. So I said 25th of October. So looking forward to that as well. Other things I've been watching, obviously, the thing everybody's talking about is Jeffrey Dahmer, the Dahmer stuff. I enjoyed it. Pete Evans, great actor. Not, I guess, not for the squeamish. I mean, you don't really see anything per se. Like a lot of these things, it's kind of left to your own brain to sort of fill some of the gaps. But I guess what makes it disturbing is it's a true story, right? That these things actually happen to real people. That's always a little bit, make sort of an extra. It's not like it's going to go, oh, that's really far-fetched, or that would never happen, because it did happen. Obviously, they've made some artistic changes, and like some of the people involved, like his neighbor has a much bigger role in this than actually happened in the case itself. But overall, I thought very well acted, very, very well made. And I think there's been some criticism that it kind of glorifies it. I really didn't take that from this show. Like I say, it's quite disturbing, or as it rightly should be. It should make you feel uncomfortable. What you're watching is not a upbeat subject matter. He comes across as a very cold, calculating, disturbed, ill man. It does explore a little bit as to why he might have been that way. And I guess the only sympathy that you could have is really around his childhood with his mother, who was obviously mentally ill, was often trying to kill herself, always arguing with his father. She was taking all kinds of meds when she was pregnant with him. And, he didn't have a particularly happy childhood. But that's as far as it goes. And I think, if you're a human being, you should be able to empathize with anybody who had a particularly difficult or not a nice childhood. But that doesn't excuse his behaviors. It doesn't excuse what he did, and it doesn't detract from the suffering of his victims in any way. And I will say that the show doesn't do that. You don't come out there going, oh, poor Jeffrey Dahmer. You're like, Jesus Christ, what a psychopath. And your heart really goes out for his victims, especially Tony, who was a death victim, who there's sort of conflicting things whether I think they were sort of saying they knew each other for quite a while, and whether they did or didn't have a relationship. In this, they did have a relationship, but it's it's a bit whether they did or they didn't in real life. But either way, it doesn't matter, because it's just absolutely heartbreaking what happens to that person. I don't want to say character, because it's a real person. But yeah, if you're into like your true crime, and you've watched like any of the Ted Bundy films or the Zac Efron one and enjoyed that, and I'd definitely say give it a watch. If you're a little bit squeamish or you find it distasteful, then obviously just don't watch it. If you don't like that sort of thing, don't go there just to be outraged. But do check it out. It's on Netflix, and there's also the Dharma Tapes, which is actually a follow-on. Again, they've done John Wayne Gacy, and they've done Ted Bundy. Now we've got Dharma Tapes, which is obviously real tapes of their interviews, and again sort of covering more the real world aspects of it. But I think very interesting if you're, say, into the sort of true crime arena. So there. So next week, as it stands, we'll have a review of The Peripheral and of House of the Dragon. Just to, I will not be doing Andor. I can't. I just, I don't like slipping into a coma every time I watch something. Maybe I'll get better, if down the line it starts getting good, better reviews, I might go check it out. But for now, if you want to know what happens, you're going to have to watch it yourself. Sorry, I suffered through She-Hulk for you. Just remember that. So do like, share, and subscribe, because I've suffered for 9 weeks of She-Hulk. So please help me out. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I will be back next week on the Spacebook. You can normally find me on Mondays and Fridays. It's Monday evenings at 8 o'clock. Wednesdays at 2. Monday we do Listed, looking back at old shows and reviewing those. We have a different one every week. Sometimes it's films, sometimes it's shows. Could be comedy, could be sci-fi. Check that out. And on Wednesdays, we talk about just what's going on, what's coming up, what's in the pop culture news. And that's myself, Dan Hadley, it's his channel, the Spacebook, Ian and Matt. So try and check us out there as well. I'm still trying to make my atomic rewind. As I said, I've had a really bad cold the last couple of weeks, so I didn't really want sniffles and coughing immortalized in my commentary, but hopefully I can get on top of that one and get a few more rewinds out as well. So they'll be coming soon, I promise. So anyway, have a good week. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully you stay to the end. I will see you next week. Bye-bye.